I'm Matt, and this is Jojo. God damn it. We will hold this talk in English if that is okay with you guys. If it's
we can do German too, if it's or Italian,
or I don't know, whatever. Elvish, melon. Oh, the light's turning on. No, okay. First of all, we need to tell you that we are very sorry. We wanted to make a workshop today with you guys and really show you all the techniques that we usually do to build our stuff. Then I forgot the crate at home. So I will be able to show you anyways with the power of the internet and our own pictures. So we're going to explain to you how we do, what we do, why we do it, and why the hell we are even here. I will try to keep cursing at a minimum because I see there are children are in the room.
Oh, don't bother actually. You know, my fucking mouth so you can work.
Okay, perfect. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, thank you. So, if anyone asks, tell them the stupid Austrians told you to say that. So, why are we here? So, we are Brazen Productions. We, why are we here?
Because we invited you.
Yes, we were invited, exactly. I know usually cosplay guests are people who are known for their costumes and usually are very famous. Then you have us. We're not very famous, but we build cool shit, so that's why they invited us. And today we're going to talk to you about what we build, why we do.
She only invited us because we bribed her with food.
Yes, probably is, yeah. So,
anyway, we're here.
And if you guys have any questions, just yell them out. This is not school, I don't care. You can throw shit at me. Don't throw it at her, throw it at me. I don't mind. Yes, sir. My costumes? This is my costume, man. Did you see it? Did you go outside? It's sweltering. No, but we have some stuff here that we can show, by the way. Jojo, would you be so kind? We brought some costumes to our booth that you can come and visit if you want to. That's one of the main things. We are not simply cosplayers, we are prop makers. So we...
Any objections?
Against what? Stop threatening people with knives. We usually build costumes and props, and now we did it as a hobby for many years, and now we actually do it for a living. So for some reason people actually pay us money to build their costumes, which for me has always been the best part of making cosplay, was building the stuff. You know, after that, wearing the costume over and over again, I think it gets...
Say something?
Yes.
So, up until about 1.5 years ago, my stance was, if I could, I would pay somebody to wear the stuff I built. And at the moment, it's like people pay me for building the stuff they want to wear, which is awesome.
Yeah. So it started out as usually with the first cosplay, which for us was, I can actually scroll down a little bit and show you, it was a Fallout cosplay. Nope, the Instagram history is way too long, but here you can see that was one of our very first costumes ever. The power armor from Fallout 4, Fallout 3 and New Vegas. And it was a very ambitious project that sort of killed us for about a year. Because we did not do anything else than building this stuff for the first year. And it started with a Pip-Boy, then it moved on to a weapon from the game, and then it moved on to the vault suit, and then in the end we ended up with this monstrosity here, which we still carry around with us, and it's as comfortable to wear as it looks. But I still love it. I actually have a small fan in the mouth part. It's at the booth if you want to see it later on. It kind of helps me survive. But in a heat like this, I would probably end up like a roast turkey, or a roast pig in my case. And for me, there was never much more to cosplay than just being able to build the stuff that I really like from the movies or the games that I really like. I never considered it as a possible career option. And neither, we both of us didn't really do it, right? We just kind of wanted to do it, and we never went to an anime convention ever until we started building our own stuff. Please come inside. You've missed the most important parts. All the funny videos are already gone. I'm so sorry for you. And
there's still room in the front.
there's still, yeah, exactly. It's
closer to the door.
It's closer to the door. No, it's the door back there. So
You're winning, like.
They don't respond well to humor. It's fine. You're not Germans. It's fine. It's way better than in German. In German, it's like, yes, we do not like humor very much. So, and over the years we started building more stuff, and it didn't really always have to do with the cosplay. It's more what stuff was interesting to us. And people would start approaching us and asking, hey, can you build me a sword for my cosplay? Can you help me with the paint job on my cosplay? Can you do the vault suits? Can you do anything for me? And we're always like way more interested in helping others than making our own costumes. That's why we don't have that many costumes ourselves. And we started doing open workshops at our home, which at that point was just the entryway to our house at that time. So we would have 15 people like stuck together, like shoulder to shoulder, working and crafting like in some sort of Chinese food factory, shoe factory. It looked very weird. It smelled of chemicals. There were people spray painting like in front of the house. It was crazy. Our neighbors hated us, and they really did. No. Now we live in a small home where nobody bothers us anymore.
No, there is a lot of space to the next neighbors.
Nobody bothers us, and our neighbors are like the people who own the place, so they should better be happy with us because we pay rent. So, and from that sort of developed the idea to make this into more than just a hobby, and to develop this into a sort of business. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but there's people who build stuff for a living. It's like prop makers, costume makers. You know people who online who sell stuff. Maybe you know somebody personally who does it. And for us, that was never really like we didn't know how to start, or that was never really a goal.
And the issue is in Austria, there is no film industry. I mean, in LA there are a lot of prop makers. Even in Germany, because there is. I mean, there is TV and there is movies and stuff being made in Germany. In Austria, it's like nothing. Literally nothing.
So, for example, this is one of the friends that we helped out for her cosplay. We provided her with this bird mask and with this small bird skull clasp here. This is our friend here, and it's from Vienna Comic Con last year. And we always do stuff like this, so we try to help out people with our costumes and with our builds. And it just got to the point where we were like saying no to so many offers that we started saying, why do we have to say no to that stuff anymore? I want to be able to say, yes, I want to take that offer, I want to do that for you. I want to work for a movie, I want to work for theater, I don't want to say no all the time. So I basically quit my job and became a professional prop maker, which my previous job was as a social worker, so I work with homeless people, so it's kind of great now. So a poor artist is still better than like a wealthy social worker in my case. And how do you produce stuff?
I'm not sure if you know, there could be Germans or social workers in here.
Oh yeah, okay, so that's like an in-joke, I'm sorry.
Okay, social workers will probably understand.
Okay. This goes out to all my social workers. And why I talk about all of this stuff is because how do you produce stuff in a way that it doesn't cost us too much money and it doesn't cost the client too much money, and that makes it viable to just, you know, I could make a weapon for a cosplayer out of foam and make it once and charge him, I don't know, 250 euros, but then I'd have it done and I'd have 250 euros, but I would have spent maybe a week on it, and that at the end of the day wouldn't really pay my rent, and it wouldn't be viable for me to actually subsist on it. So one of the things we started doing was sculpting. Anyone knows what sculpting is? Hands up. You know what sculpting is? Have you heard about it? Okay. Sculpting basically is you take any material that you like, be it wood, foam, warbler, or clay in my case, and you make something out of it that you think is good enough to then create a silicone form. So I can show you, for example, the iBot is at our booth. I sculpted this robot here out of clay completely. So there's a styrofoam ball inside. don't worry about the meme in the background. It's not important. Actually, I want to add a
thing. If you say it, everybody's going to look at it.
Yeah, I look at it myself.
Don't look at it.
I'm sorry. So basically, I sculpted this out of clay, and the stuff I use is called monster clay, because it's basically an oil-based, sulfur-free clay. Why is that important? You know, normal clay is water-based, so you know clay like it's like kind of like cement. So you mix it in with water, and then it dries out, and it becomes cracked, and you kind of forget about it. It's like the art projects you did in school. I did those. They were horrible. But the awesome thing about oil clay is that it never dries out, so it stays like that forever, and you can reuse it again and again and again. It may get dirty after a while, but it never starts drying out. So I can use the same amount of monster clay for different projects. So I sculpt the base form as good as I can. We cover it in silicone. Get in here, buddy. If you stand next to the vent, it's nice and cool over there. Grab a monster, it's free. I'm just joking.
I think we're risking getting
yeah,
ourselves.
Yeah, it's fine. And then you can see that the inside is still the clay form, and then you brush silicone on it to create a form.
Can I say something about the silicone?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So silicone is the soft, wobbly material. It sticks to nothing except for silicone, which is awesome in some cases and it's horrible in others.
Give me the small piece of
Oh yeah. It's squishy.
You catch it? Just give it.
So it's squishy and it doesn't stick to anything except for other silicone. Turns out baking sheets are made of silicone. Paper baking sheets are made of silicone, so this is not a good base for using silicone. That is awesome.
Good.
I love that. It's like my favorite impromptu cosplay. Just put the brain slug on, make a stupid face, bam, cosplay.
Bam, cosplay.
So silicone is usually, no, always mixed from two parts. So you buy two kinds of chemicals, mix them together, and then
bam, silicone.
you brush bam, silicone.
Yeah.
Okay, so that you brush them on. So if you want to try that, a few tips. Start the first brush on layer. Silicone is very expensive. That's the reason why we brush it on. Because you could also just put the thing in a box and then just cover it with silicone. You can do that, but you will spend a lot of money. So instead, you only brush on a layer and then put something else around it. You need the silicone, or usually you use the silicone because it sticks to nothing. It takes on the shape or the negative of the shape. You brush it on, and
Exactly. And for
that's the one we are using.
That is the type of product we're using at the moment. These are called Smooth On, and they're probably the most expensive that you can buy at the moment. They're horribly expensive, to the point where it's
the one on the left. This is about a pint each. So this is like both of these small containers are as big as this cup. And so you see, it's very expensive.
It's very expensive.
But you don't need a lot of it.
That's the point being, because people have told me that here in Serbia it's hard to come by certain products, certain materials that we can get in Austria, and I have to respond that we don't buy them in Austria.
We get them from Germany.
We buy them from Germany or from Belgium, we don't get them in Austria as well. And when we know that they're kind of expensive, but we tried out different sorts of silicones that were produced locally in Austria, and they have a big rate of failure. So sometimes it will work, sometimes it didn't work. What I can say from my experience with this stuff here, and I'm not paid by these people because I would like to be paid by these people in silicone, because it would help me. The failure rate with this stuff is as low as you can get, because it describes very specifically how much by weight or by volume you have to mix together, and then how much humidity in the air should be around. If it's like above 50%, the failure rate gets higher. If it's around 50, it's good. If it's 35, it's perfect. So we have a dehumidifier in our workshop because we work in a basement, so it gets very moist and spidery. But spiders are not part of the equation.
No, but still with this this kind of, or this brand of silicone is very fail-safe. It's not fail-safe, but it's fail-safer than others. You can just try it out, try this one or try another. There are a lot of brands, there are a lot of cheaper brands that you can try. Yeah, try them out and use the one that you want. What does not work, at least not very well, is, you know, the bathroom silicone that you just squeeze out of it works if you just need a one-off, then be careful because you get a lot of bubbles. It works for 1 or 2 pulls, but usually the molds get, they deteriorate pretty quickly if you get a nice mold at all. So for this one, and that is true for all kinds, even if you use the bathroom silicone. So this is, I think, 4 or 5 layers of brushed on silicone, and the first layer, this is very important, the very first layer, it's brush it on thin enough that it's just like some liquid on top, and that's it, like you would brush on a clear coat or something. At least for the first, and in best case also the second layer, and then you can use their silicone thickening agents, and then you can use it. Oh yeah, he will show around a pool. This is not a silicone mold, but it's a pool from a silicone mold. Yeah, just.
Can I just say something?
Sure, say.
So, for example,
he doesn't need the microphone.
This was sculpted in clay, as I said, with the other stuff. And you can still see there's like fingerprints of myself on there, just because the clay is so malleable and the silicone cures so perfectly that it still keeps those fingerprints. Like you can see here's a fingerprint of mine, or there's like brushes that you put with a paintbrush to clean it up. And it's still very, very clean. And what we call here, this is a resin pool. So because we have a form and we cast the resin, we can pull it out. That's what the inside looks like. That's why inside it's nice and smooth, and outside it has all the imperfections that we sculpted into it. Yeah? So the nice thing about monster clay, or about the resin, about that specific clay, is you don't need anything else to cover it. So you can use that with the silicone directly. You don't have to put in a clear coat or any other sort of resin or anything. You just mold it directly. You can give this screw if you want to. It's quite heavy, but this is one of our master molds. So every time we do a silicone mold, the first or second pull will be our master. So that was what we keep in case that the silicone mold breaks or rips or whatever.
Which it does sometimes. So this was already molded twice. Yeah, and it only, I mean, it depends on the silicone, on the quality of the silicone. But usually you get from this kind of silicone you get around 50. There are others where you get around 10 or 12, and it usually deteriorates over time, and the resin doesn't. So if we wanted to, even if we only got 2 casts from one mold, and then I don't know 3-5 years later we want another one, then probably the silicone mold is bad. So always keep usually it's the second pull is usually the best. So always keep that one, put it away, resist the urge to use it.
Yeah.
Do not take this shortcut. Do not take shortcuts. Really don't.
I sometimes do it bad. So why do we tell you about this boring stuff? Well, with this boring stuff you can do pretty cool stuff. So for example, I sculpted the skull mask, and after having made the silicone mold, I brushed in first bronze powder.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you think it would be cool to show the other side of how to finish the silicone mold before going into casting?
Oh yeah, we can. I just wanted to lighten up the conversation.
What? They're here to learn stuff.
School is out. It's boring. I want to take shortcuts.
School is out. People are missing everything. You know,
It's freaking out. Okay,
so this is the other side.
So this is when this is how everything is covered up completely in ugly, and why are those dimples there? I can tell you those dimples are there for one sole reason. If we pulled off the silicone right now at this point, it would be a floppy bag of silicone, and you wouldn't be able to use it because it's
floppy.
It's a floppy bag of silicone. If you put in resin, it would come out like a trash bag. So how do we keep the silicone in that form without the clay inside holding it in place? That's what we call a mother mold. Let me look up a picture. Yeah. Talk about the mother.
Or sometimes, yeah, we use it. We use plastic, also two-part plastic, but you can actually use more or less everything. If you have a mold that you don't use too often, or you are short on money, or both, then you can use like plaster bandages, or just plaster, or warbler, or paper mache, or whatever you have lying around actually. So this is not us, but this is, yeah, I think you see how it works.
You need a hard outer shell.
Yeah, the white one is the silicone already. In this case, in this video you see when you put on the silicone. So this is too thick for my liking, but anyway, what you see here is he brushes. Okay, this is not the video I thought it would be.
It's fine, but you can see that they put on layers of silicone.
Sorry, yes it is. I thought the yellow. The yellow is also silicone. What they do is they color every second layer, so you know where you already have the second or third or fourth layer on.
Exactly.
So they have one white layer, then they have a yellow layer, and then so just color it with some.
We're not gonna watch the whole 16 minutes. I'm just like skipping forward.
Yeah.
So you see, you have to put in a lot of work to put on this outer shell.
So this is just some plastic that can be kneaded on more or less. But
ours does not require a hammer to separate, to be honest. This is big.
I put cling wrap in between. Just some.
But this is basically how we do it, and these...
Here you see how bubbly it is.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why you need that outer shell to keep it in place, because that skin alone doesn't help at all. And that's why we have these, what we call keys. So you put these on the outside, you just glue them on, it's like... With silicone. And this is what connects to the outer shell, so that keeps it in place.
So the silicone doesn't wobble around in the shell. Is it, do you understand what we're talking about? Okay.
If there's any questions...
I know it's a lot of information. If you have questions or you just think, what the fuck are you talking about? Please say so.
Yeah, for example, you could just make a box mold, which is basically building a box around what you built and filling it up with silicone.
That's cool for stuff like this.
Which is an easier way, of course, to making it, because you don't have to think about the thickness of the silicone.
Or this stuff where you have a flat surface underneath, because you mold it like this, and then you pour in the resin, and it just cures like this, and then it's flat on the.
You need to lift it up so people see. The point being, why don't we do this with everything? Because silicone is goddamn expensive, and we don't want to waste that stuff. It's so expensive in fact that we avoid making box molds at all.
Unless we're very lazy.
Unless we're very, very, very lazy and pressed for time. By the way, we build the boxes out of Legos. So we just, because Legos are awesome, so you can build the boxes outside and you can reuse the Lego, since it's going to be filled up with silicone, and the silicone doesn't adhere to anything except for silicone. You can just pull out the Lego afterwards.
Building the Lego box is fun.
Yeah, you like it, I fucking hate it. That's like the... Jesus Christ, stop freaking out! No, stop it. And there's the finished product.
Oh yeah, in the background you see the...
Like you see our mountain of molds.
you see the orange parts are the molds, so they are mold skins, and then you see the yellow parts. Those are the sturdy plastic outer shells.
Exactly. So that's basically how we build those types of projects. Which is not to say that it is the only type of material we use. We use pretty much everything we can find, from cardboard to plastic to foam to warbler to just trash that's lying around, just because sometimes you have to use whatever you can find. And I'm trying to look up an example here. Oh yeah.
And dog.
This is the best part of the presentation. This is Luna. This is our dog. She's not here with us today. I'm sorry. She's so beautiful, so pretty.
And Harry. God has. In a group they call it hasty glitter.
Yeah.
Because you will never get rid of it. Once it's there, you don't get rid of it.
Yeah.
Ever.
So, basically, this is the finished product. And since you don't want to fill this whole thing up with resin, you do something that we call slush casting. So for the mask that I showed you, you can see it in the mask is that it's hollow inside. And the way you do it is by taking small amounts of resin, mixing it together and slushing it around inside until it forms a thicker layer. So this one is about 3 layers of resin. Yes, sir.
Could you explain about resin?
Oh, resin. What's resin?
It's plastic that forms when you put 2 parts together. So usually it's one part. We use almost exclusively polyurethane resin, and polyurethane is.
I'm trying to.
Yeah, it's basically it's a plastic. It's a type of plastic. So you get the liquid polyurethane, and then you get a hardener, and you put them together. And depending on the type of hardener, and depending on the type of so it's usually called part A is the urethane itself, and then part B is the hardener, and there are different parts A and B that make up different parts of plastic. So this, for example, is our workhorse plastic. It's white, and it cures within. It's gel-like within I'm starting over. It starts out when you mix it together almost like water, or like thin syrup, maybe like juice, and then it gets gel-like within a few minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how warm it is, and then it's hard after 10 to 15 minutes. So you mix it together, you pour it in the form, in the silicone form, and then you slush it around. So you cover everything, and it gets like syrup and honey, and then even harder, and at some point it just stops moving. And then you can, so in this way you can make several coats, several layers.
Pretty much every childhood toy that you ever owned was made out of stuff like this. Some of the cheaper kinds, some of the more durable kind, and the better ones. It's like if you buy those 200 euros anime figurines, those are all resin casts. So it's plastic that you mix by yourself without having to have an industrial machine do it.
And there are several types. So the one we use usually is hard. It's just hard and rigid. So it's not brittle, it doesn't break quickly, but it's still hard, it doesn't bend. Then we have one that has a little softer hardener that you will show it around. So you can bend it a little, even when it's cured. And then we have this one. Catch. That's rubber. It's the same material basically, but with a softener. And you get it in, like this one is white, but you also get it in like translucent or transparent.
So it's pretty much...
it's plastic.
It's plastic.
So you 2-part mixed together and it's plastic. And the hardening process is called curing. So when it's not when it's mixed and...
we should have stated that before maybe.
Yeah.
I can actually show you a quick video on, I think it's a POV video, so I'm very sorry for the quality.
Oh yeah, it's a point of view.
So this is my point of view while I'm casting.
And these are our resin containers, the two parts. Oh yeah, there is the
That's for the mask that you should have shown.
That's this mask. That's the mold of this mask. The first one.
Everything is covered in paper because it just dirties up everything, and I just want to remove it quickly. So you can cover it with clean film or with whatever you need.
We use from IKEA. They have these rolls.
Something just happened. I did not do that. Okay. Hell yeah. This is fun. So we will dispense with
I can
technology.
finish my sentence because I don't
go
need
ahead.
the visuals. Actually, for stuff like that, and I can recommend it if you have an IKEA. I don't know. Yes. Yeah, because there's no IKEA in very strange places. So at IKEA there are these, I think, 30-meter rolls of just painting paper for kids with a small roll holder, and it's very cheap and cheaper than using actual, covering material. They are not very broad, they're like this, but it's totally, it works. I love that stuff, and it's really cheap. And I mean, we are using a lot of it, and we buy a roll every 2 or 3 months. So if you only do it for a hobby, you will probably last 3 years with one roll, and it's a few euros.
Yeah. I'm restarting the computer right now, so I don't really know. Do you have any questions so far? Is there anything kind of unclear, or do you need, hey, you want to come in? Nope, nobody wants to come in. Nobody wants to talk to the weird Austrians. It's fine, I totally understand. I don't know what's happening, which is fine. Is there a question back there, or is it just somebody stretching? Just stretching? Just stretching. Awesome. Yes, please.
Recently for a cosplay that I'm planning on doing for this whole convention, I made horns using paper clay, which I then sanded to make them real nice and smooth. What would be the best alternative that is both cheap and efficient? Because I did spend a couple of weeks waiting for the paper clay to harden enough for me to sand it.
So there's many alternatives to paper clay. In my opinion, there's a few really good ones. People usually recently have started using foam clay, which is something you buy from the foam providers. In my general opinion, I made a whole video on that topic. It has its uses, but it's really very expensive, and you don't get to do a lot with the material that you get.
It breaks easily.
And it breaks very easily. Resin comes back into play now because what I do with my horns is usually I make them out of styrofoam or styrodur. Do you have styrodur here?
Yeah.
Which is the pink insulation foam?
Yeah.
I think it's back on, but I don't know. This old gentleman is just looking at me weirdly. Do you see that weird old gentleman? Yes, you do. Yeah. And what I like to do is I like to carve them out of that styrofoam, and then I use epoxy resin, which is just basic laminating resin, and cover it with that. And it becomes very durable, and it's very, very cheap. And you can make like a bunch of them very quickly.
That is to look around for a resin though, because some of them take over 24 hours to harden, but there are some that only take a few hours.
But if you don't have resin and you want it to be even quicker and cheaper, I use wood glue. Because wood glue, 2 or 3 layers of wood glue, and everything is covered nice and smooth, and it's very fast. And then you can use spray paint on top of it, because usually the spray paint would dissolve the styrofoam or the styrodur underneath it. So that's why, yeah, something has crashed. I don't know. This is not my computer. So that's what my cheap alternative would be. I've made different approaches. I also sculpted some of them. Yeah. And yeah, I think please restore. I hope it's not porn. No, it's not porn. Awesome. Perfect. That would have been a very different show, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, let's try this again. I can show you what we do. And basically, I am very surprised that I am even sitting here and talking to you about this, because about half a year ago, I wasn't sure that this would be my profession. at any point, because there's literally no industry for this type of stuff here in Europe. There's literally nobody but us cosplayers and anime and gaming fans. Yeah. Yeah, sure, I can show you, but this part they already saw. So, but I'm really happy to be able to be here and talk to you about this. So, here you can see I'm adding the first part. This is the part A. And it's usually for the 65D smoothcast, it's a mixture of 100A to 93 part B. And I do the math not in my head because I'm bad at math. So you will see me doing very stupid basic math on the calculator because it's easier for me. So I mix the two parts together, and now it gets hard because I actually have to put down the camera and mix it together. So, oh, yeah.
It's hard to pour it out of the container in exact amounts. So we use single-use, it's called pipettes.
Yeah.
You get them for a few euros or whatever on Amazon in 100 of them.
It's fine. It's back on for some reason. Thank you. So you mix it together, and you need to be quite fast because the resin starts curing as soon as you pour it together. But you need to be thorough because if you don't mix it together well, it could stay liquid, and that is very, very nasty to clean out because it doesn't cure, and and now you see the motion I'm trying to do one-handed, which I normally would do both-handed. And this is a neat little trick that I can tell you is, yeah, don't stack this stuff like I do. This is called micro balloons, which are minuscule, small glass balloons that you can mix into the resin.
They're like powder, but they are actually glass balloons.
So, and you mix it in with the resin, so you conserve more resin. So you put in that powder, like half and half with the resin, and it becomes very thick, and it makes your resin
thicker but lighter.
Thicker but lighter. So
and the balloons are cheaper than the resin.
Yeah. So you buy this, and it's kind of like putting, I don't know, like my grandma in Italy put like wood chips into the pasta or whatever. It's like, don't judge. We didn't have much money. Also, it's very good wood chips. And this is fun. When you're done with the cups, you can actually just pull out the rest of the resin. And
as long as there is some point in time where it's already almost cured, but not yet really hard, and then reuse them.
Yeah. And then we can, if we do this 2 or 3 times, we have a mask that is thick enough. I have to open it up. And this is the mother mold that you see right here. Well, I'm so glad I shot this stupid video, guys. I'm really... Yeah. And yeah, you remove it. This is actually the old mold, so you will see that it's been ripped apart a little bit. And now you will have a time skip again because I can't do it with one hand.
So for the mother mold, you need to be careful because it has to come off easily when the cast inside is already hard.
Whereas you have to break it, which is not good.
Yeah.
This is, by the way, I'm tricking you, by the way, because I already had pulled the mask out, and this is just me putting the mask back in and just pretending to pull it off, because I literally did not film it. So this is how you cast a mask, and wow, that is actually helpful. Wow, I didn't think that this video would actually be useful. This is basically what we do with most of our products, but as I said, it's not the only way. There's different materials that you can use, and I've met people today who make awesome stuff out of cardboard and out of the hot glue, which is awesome. You can pretty much sculpt with hot glue, which is amazing.
Hot glue is awesome for seams.
Decorations and seams. So
welding seams.
So we were invited to talk to you about this, but my point being is you don't need to use this stuff. There's different ways of using it. Also, if you find a local supplier of silicone and resin, get together with a few friends, put in the money and try it out, and then talk to each other and find out which supplier actually is providing you with the best stuff. If you want our suggestions, I would say polyurethane resin, which means the 2-component stuff, because you can get clear resin like out of the box and you can just pour it, and it takes forever to cure, and sometimes it remains sticky. But if you see, for example, the people who do like dioramas with the clear resin filled up, they're really beautiful on Pinterest and stuff, but if you touch them, they stay sticky. And if you have a costume, that's not going to help you. You don't want that stuff. And for coating foam or anything from cardboard to, for example, the awesome thing about the epoxy resin that I talked to you about, if you have styrofoam, you can coat styrofoam with it, so it remains resistant and you cannot puncture holes in it anymore. So it becomes hard like stone, and then you can spray paint it. So even though it seems kind of dumb to use something that soft as a base for costume pieces or for props or for armor, it can be turned into a very durable material with that foam, with that resin. And yeah, that's pretty much, yeah.
Quick word to the different kinds of resin you can use. So polyurethane resin usually cures very fast, so it's usually used for masks and stuff. Epoxy resin is another kind of resin that usually takes a lot longer to cure. Most people using clear resins use epoxy resin because with polyurethane resin there aren't many that are really clear, and the ones that are really, really toxic and often not sold to end consumers. So, but also with the polyurethane and especially with the epoxy resin, always use rubber gloves, so knitwear gloves usually. Not really latex, because latex doesn't hold up to a lot. Or vinyl, it's in English. Always use gloves, always use the resin out. For epoxy resin, use it outside. For polyurethane resin, look on the box. You can use most indoors, but open the window. Do not use it like in the bathroom, because it's just too. The fumes are toxic, and you should not get it on the skin, especially with epoxy resin, because it is. Maybe I have to show this. Especially with epoxy resin, you can develop allergies very quickly, and that's not fun. Really, like,
we have 50 more minutes.
Extremely not fun.
Awesome, 50 more minutes, dudes, I can't believe it. Here you can see just basic foam armor that I did for, that I'm doing for my Monster Hunter cosplay. This is very cheap foam. I carved it with a heat knife, soldering iron. And I really hate it when stuff stays floppy and I'm having a hard time painting it. That's why I coated it with the epoxy resin, Epsilon it's called. And it turned out like this. It actually covers some of the scars from the soldering iron, so it becomes nice and smooth. And then I just spray painted it and painted up in a minute, and it's very durable and it's very hard now, while still being a little bit flexible. So this is what I like to use for my armor stuff. Just because it's quick, it's easy, and it doesn't, you can use, I don't know, do you guys plastic tip? Do you know that stuff? It's like a spray that you use. I hate it, because even if you put like several coats on top of a foam, if you rip it, you can tear it off like a sheet of plastic.
With all the paint.
And that's just, it happened to me, and it sucks, and I wish nobody would use that stuff, but it's still around. There's also flexi paint, which is the same, shit, just in bottled form. And if you don't have any of that stuff, if you just have foam or cardboard, my heartfelt suggestion is just wood glue. Because wood glue is literally the cheapest form of covering like foam or whatever. And if you do like 2 or 3 layers of wood glue, it becomes solid, it becomes beautiful, it becomes smooth. You can spray paint it, you can use it for everything. And it's the cheapest, easiest way to do stuff, and it's awesome. I really like it. So wood glue is still one of my favorites.
We still use it a lot.
Yeah. this is the way you do a box mold. So we have this at the booth. It's the Lego pieces, and then we fill it up with silicone. That's what we talked about before. And that's just size comparison. This is the original mask, and this is the miniature I did for shits and giggles for some reason. And it turned out really good. And even though the silicone mold is kind of, yeah, Jesus Christ. It's refusing to work. Oh, this is like another one I can show you. Oh yeah, you can see the pore. Oh no, that's the same video I showed you before. So I'm sorry, that's it. We have 15 more minutes, and I'm going to ask you if you have any questions at all. If not, I'm going to keep showing you stupid videos. Yeah, sure.
So, do you have questions?
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
You should try an email to the silicon guys to get sponsorship. I think it would work.
It would be nice. The problem is that they have the seat in the States, by the way, and so it's hard to get in contact with anyone. Plus, we got offerings from like phone providers for sponsorships, but I really don't think I don't want to sell people stuff. I want to show people that you can use pretty much anything. And then me saying, oh, you can use this phone to do everything is like not what we are standing for, because if there's a cheaper and better alternative, I would always choose that, and I would never tell anybody to use a certain brand of stuff just because it's the one who's paying me at the moment. I don't think that is sensible for what we do, and it's just...
What we might do is, you know, we have these demos usually, and we have all kinds of workshops, so maybe like the things, yeah. Like, okay, we are making these, we're doing these workshops, can you sponsor the workshop with some material, and then, yeah, I mean, oh yeah.
Sweet anime Jesus.
Very important.
They told me I could be anything I wanted, so I became Sailor Moon. I saw there was another question.
Yeah, what is the most challenging project you ever applied for?
I think it's the Immortan Joe.
Really? Okay. I think the Immortan Joe armor was very, very challenging because we had to literally build a machine that we didn't have before for it.
Oh yeah, we built the power armor, but the vacuum form parts weren't done by ourselves. So, and it was always like, yeah, but we didn't do the vacuum form parts, and then like, you know what? We're gonna build a vacuum former and just look if it works. And yeah, it worked.
So yeah, the Immortan Joe, but also one of the projects that we didn't document as well is, for me, one of the most challenging things was we worked for a commercial. So they gave us they commissioned us. Yeah. Oh yeah, let me see the commercial. Lasertron. So they asked us to recreate a laser tag vest. So they gave us a very old, shitty...
Old and ugly laser tag vest. I mean, all laser tag vests are just, yeah, bulky and ugly. And it's like, hey, can you take this and make it into a cool looking armor? And they're like, yeah, we'll try. And they got this very, very nice Austrian actor, and I mean, they were super nice and the actor was super nice, but it was very challenging design-wise because it should, I mean, it should look good and it should look modern, but you should see that it's a laser tag. Like, okay, we'll try.
So we had 3 months that we spent on this foam armor. So this is way back. So this is 4 or 5 years back.
Yeah.
And the challenge was to implement the laser tag vest into the armor. And you can see that the commercial is very well produced, you know, and they had certain standards, which I think at that time, they spent, by the way, they spent 20,000 euros on that opening mechanism. That is insane. Yeah, that's our armor, and the guy who directed it was very specific about everything, and he wanted to micromanage it to a T, and it was pretty hard to make it happen. And this was before we became a business, so this was still as a hobbyist.
But I would say it kind of kicked it off. That was in 2016. theme, and that was the first. It kind of kicked off our, hey, we could do that as a business.
Yeah. But it was fun. It was challenging, but it's kind of we worked together with friends on it, and one of our friends actually started yelling at the producer at one point because he wasn't happy with how things were working, and he literally yelled at the producer.
And Matt took him and just like in the movies, yeah, just went there, took him like this, and just led him out of the room and came back in and it would have been funny if it wasn't so stressful at the time.
Yeah, it was like, he's paying us about 3,000 euros for that project, and I'm not gonna let you fuck this up for us. So, I'm just looking at random stuff to show you, but it's literally...
Are there questions? Yeah, there is one.
Yeah, me again, and I have 2 questions.
Yes, please go ahead.
First is about UV resin, because I watch a lot of people who have craft channels, and I see them using UV resin when it comes to jewelry, because it's easier to work with. How expensive is it? Is it more expensive than regular resin?
Yeah.
It is. But on the other hand, it is. You can exactly determine the time when it's gonna harden. So this is I think this is one of the main. Everything okay?
Yeah.
Did something happen?
Somebody just opened it.
Okay. So one of the main upsides of or pros for the UV resin is that you can pour it in, you can extract all the bubbles and everything, and then you put it into the UV lamp, and then it's gonna harden. The downside is it doesn't work as well when it's a big thing, because the UV light sometimes doesn't get in. And you cannot color it with opaque colors, because then you only have the outer layer hardened and the rest.
Yeah, I'm just showing some.
Why are you distracting?
I'm sorry, I'm just showing some of the things we did.
Yeah, but let me answer the question.
We have 1 more minute.
So UV resin is expensive, but it is also great because you have some more freedom to see when it will harden and how it will harden. So, because with polyurethane, it is also very, very liquid, but it hardens very fast.
Because you need the heat to cure that stuff, and it's exactly the light, yeah. And with polyurethane, it just happens by itself. Yeah. So you mix it and it happens.
But it's great for jewelry.
Yeah.
And also,
yes.
The second question is, which project do you find most engaging, and which project, like, you get commissioned to make something, did you just go, ooh, I really wanted to make something like this, or what kind of project brings you most joy?
What brings most joy?
Yeah, when you make it and you just enjoy making it a lot.
I mean, we do sometimes just happen to come across a product. Oh, we need to do that. You think someone will buy that? I don't know. I don't care. I want to do it.
Yeah. So we are very. So example, if somebody wants to buy an Iron Man mask, there's hundreds of people out there. There's people from all across the world who produce amazing Iron Man masks. You can get it pretty cheap on eBay or on Etsy, and that's what we're not gonna do. We're not gonna do those, just because I think our thing is very much a niche type of product. So we want to make products that people kind of find like a small treasure. So you find our store and you find exactly that one thing that doesn't exist anywhere. And it's like, oh my god, yes, they get it. It's like, for example, for me, that the first moment where I really thought that happened really well was, do you know Stranger Things, the show? Yeah, this is Dart, so the small creature from the 2nd season. I'm not spoiling anyone, but it's basically the creature that they find in the 2nd season. And I found online that they only had models of the 2-legged version, which is like this creepy crawly, like nude kind of thing. And I wanted to make one that kind of looks at you when you hold it in your hand. And I sculpted this just for me and for a friend of mine who was a big fan of the show. And just because I had it, I put it in my shop, and we never really had sold that much before. And that Christmas 2 years ago, we sold 35 of these, which was insane. It was our first really. It's like people, it sort of clicked, people found something that they didn't find anywhere else, and they wanted it. And that's like what we try to serve, those people who are the nerds, the fans, the people who actually like this stuff, not the people who buy like the cheap Mjolnir from Amazon. We're always one, right? Are you so?
No, I just wanted to circle back to what I was saying before. Oh, sorry. Don't worry. So basically, what we're trying to do only projects that we try to be very Marie Kondo about it, because you never know what people will buy. So we try to create stuff that we really like and care about, because it's also easier to stick to it. Because if you have to do something that you really don't want to make, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It really is horrible. So we try only to do stuff that we really like. But of course, I mean, we're business, so if you throw enough money at us, we will do almost everything. but it's not as fun. So we try not to do that and direct people to others who can do it. Yeah, unless we need the money.
Yes, unless we need the money.
I'm sorry, there were two other questions.
Yes.
One, was that you in Sakurabana Beograd?
No, we only did.
Oh no, Sakurabana is a friend of ours, but we did all the
horns.
All the horns, so
except for two of the very big ones, I think.
Yeah, but we did all the horns, transparent horns, because she was like, I need somebody who help me with those horns. I was like, okay, I can sculpt them. And we did a cool thing, which is the last thing. Another fun thing is you do like, you have a form like those horns, and you do just 1 or 2 layers of resin. So just very thin. And then you mix in a sort of polyurethane foam.
Which
it's like expanding foam.
Expanding foam, but you can, it's very fine, and you can, just mix together a few grams. So we have an outer layer of resin, which is hard and paintable and everything, and then on the inside it's foam, so it's very light. The horns, I mean, the horns on this cosplay, because they're over 40, so she said, I cannot do them from Wobbler or from anything else, because they're too many, they're gonna be too heavy. So the smaller horns, they weigh between 10 and 15 grams each.
So you can really wear a lot of them, and that's a cool way. For example, for our death claw gauntlets, we have a big gauntlet with 3 claws on it from Fallout 4, and it's super light because it's like 2 layers of resin and the rest is foam, and it makes it durable, it makes it strong. The foam doesn't collapse on itself because it's polyurethane. You can actually glue stuff onto the foam directly, it doesn't crumble or anything, and it just makes it very strong and light and cheaper to produce, and cheaper for the customers.
So it's not good for
Yes. So this is 2-part expanding foam. For small stuff like this, I would not recommend using the one from the hardware store.
Because you have to use the whole can.
can.
You cannot really, if you use the stuff from the hardware store, you have to use the whole can because it's activated, and that's why we use this the small stuff that we have to mix ourselves. Because even like this much liquid expands to like
17 fold. About
17 fold. It's insane. We're out of time, I think. Thank you so much for showing up. I hope it was interesting for you guys. If you have any questions, we will be at our booth the whole weekend and tomorrow as well. And if you have any questions on crafting or sculpting or painting or whatever, just show up and we'll try to not disappoint you. Thank you.